It's podcast day.
It is podcast
We got
day.
O-Dog back in the house.
Yeah, I'm just going to warn everybody that we got the big O-Dog here working out. So if you hear some barbells dropping or some grunting and groaning, it's O-Dog.
Grunting and groaning.
Yeah, grunt. Is it? No, not grunt. Yeah,
That's
you
just
grunt.
funny. Yeah,
Groan, like,
groan. That's
Ah,
funny.
That's groaning. Oh.
Or
Or no movement at all.
And
Yeah.
and
If I
he's
get
doing-
up and you hear someone slapping someone, it's to get them moving.
Yeah, and he's doing his workout in complete silence because we have to do the podcast. So that's weird.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing. People that do that, people that work out with no music.
Especially when you can choose to have music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a guy that used to work here that would
I
do
know.
this. So the one day in particular, I remember I walked in the gym. There was no lights on it, and I didn't see his car, so I thought I was the first one here. I come in, I open the side door over there,
Yeah.
and I could just hear, shh,
Yeah.
shh, shh. And I'm like, what is going on? So I look, he's doing cleans in the corner in the dark with no music.
Yeah. One of our employees.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, dude, are you good?
Yeah. So that just explains to you that how normal you have to be to
Oh,
work
yeah.
here.
Oh, yeah. There's a certain level of
Yeah.
not normal that's
Yeah.
required. So anyways, O-Dog might pop in at some point. So anyways, that's the first part of our day.
Yeah.
Do you have any opening?
I got a whole bunch, dude.
You want to do the opening anthem here?
Well, yeah, I dropped my son off on Monday in Guelph. So
Did you
what's that?
Did you cry?
Nope, I didn't cry.
Really? We're done crying?
I didn't cry.
You think we're past crying?
I didn't cry.
No, I know. So I'm asking.
Oh,
Are you
no.
not going to cry ever again? Or do
No,
you think
no,
you're
no,
gonna
no.
cry?
So that he was home for 8 days,
Mhm.
and obviously you saw him quite a bit. It
Is
was
that
so
fun?
nice to have him home, dude. Like I've said this on podcasts a couple times, how it's hard to be a dad sometimes when they move away like that, especially how young he was and is. And, you know, you get used after 4 months, you're talking to him on the phone or a FaceTime and it's 10 minutes. And if he's into it, we'll get half an hour, but busy, tired, and, you know, but it's just different, right? And then after games, you get to see him for a few minutes, then he takes off, or we'll go for dinner or something like that. And it's just a short burst and you're trying to jam as much in. So it's just so nice to have him home for 8 days and just be ourselves, because him and I are tight. And I realized how much, just in that short time, how much I actually missed him and how much I actually like him and everything that he's about and how he makes me laugh and all these things. And it's just, I appreciate him even more now. And so when we were winding up the visit, the Christmas vacation or whatever you call it, I was just like, the last couple of days, I'm like, oh man, we got to bring him back. And I think he was feeling it a little bit too, because he, you know, it's always good to be home, right?
Yeah.
But one of the interesting, so anyways, I dropped him off, and, you know, it was sad. I was just like, you know,
Yeah, it's your kid.
and-
Yeah.
but he's got to do this, of course, and he wants to do this, but it was like, wow, I want to be with my son more. So that's like one of the things I always say is, you know, be careful what you wish for with this hockey thing as a parent, because it gets you right in the heart sometimes.
Yeah.
And like I miss my kid, man. I like my kid. So one of the funny things is when he was here. So what happened, guys? So when he was here, we kept him and a handful of OHL guys on the ice early in the mornings, and there's a few days in a row, even on his vacation, where he got up and we're on the ice at 7:00 in the morning, and you know, I could obviously he knew he had to do it just to keep his legs under him. Like, he didn't have to, but it's a good thing. We didn't go really hard or anything, but kind of got some pace a little bit. But anyways, we would get here at 7, and a couple of days we didn't leave till 7 and 8 o'clock at night. And he was his happiest kid being here. We can't explain to people how much they love PowerTech. And him and the boys were here all day, and that's what he said to me was, "Dad, I love PowerTech. I could stay here all day."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's we talked about last week, the energy thing.
Yeah,
I think,
for sure.
I think that's a huge part of why it's so fun to be fun, enjoyable, whatever word. It's where you end up feeling like you're in flow all day.
Yeah.
And time's just buzzing by, even when it's super busy or when it's really hard. When for the group of, especially the more elite guys coming in, they skate, they work out, they're kind of just getting bagged for the whole day.
Yeah.
And but it's that high energy, high pace environment. Tunes are blasting, everyone's kind of talking, goofing around, laughing, working hard all at the same time. So it's just it's that environment we always talk about, you know.
Oh, it's the best place to be.
Yeah, it's good.
This is my home base.
Yeah, it is home. That's what it feels like for me too. Home base.
Yeah,
You know.
it's the best. When
So-
I'm not here for a couple of days, which is not very often, I miss it. I'm out of my routine. And
Yeah,
stuff.
for sure. Yeah.
Speaking of that, so the last couple of weeks I've been a little bit lackadaisical. Yeah, I haven't been lackadaisical in a way.
It's not your routine.
Yeah,
intensity dials down.
Intensity. I was like, my son coming home, my son being in town, Christmas, just a lot going on. The fitness has been like, it's been there, but it's been like, okay, let's just get through it without my focus. So anyways, I decided yesterday, actually O-Dog worked out with me yesterday. I was kind of getting back into it yesterday. My ass is so sore today. You couldn't pull a pin out of my ass with a tow truck right now. You know? That's how sore it is.
I'm leaving that one in.
Well, of course you are. But I got dialed back in. Like the reset was yesterday, and it's good. Ate nice and clean. So that's that.
I still haven't had my reset.
I know, because you still got a couple days left.
Man, this Italian thing, man. Anyone who's foreign, and I'm sure there's other not foreign families that are like this.
Maybe.
But man, if you're that Southern European family, like holy hell, man. We got so normally non-COVID, it's December 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th. Sometimes we'll do another day between the 26th and the 31st, and then we do the 31st and January 1st.
It's a lot, man.
So we got like 7 days of family style gathering.
Yeah.
In a 2-week span, and it's like. It's a lot, not even 10 days. It's a lot, man.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to have mine really. So I'm in go through the motions mode until January 3rd, probably.
Yeah. Just to get by.
Yeah. Just to
burn some calories. Try to not eat the cherry pie or whatever.
Well, I was talking to Mike Christine about it too. Cause you go through the holidays and it's easy to get out of your routine. So if you can do something to keep some semblance of the routine, it makes it easier to get back into it after. Because normally after the holidays, it's tough for people to get back into the flow. Yeah. Because for 2 weeks, you're kind of checked out. You just kind of mail it in. Yeah. So if you can do something to try to maintain it, that was one thing I was set on this year. Like you were saying, just every day, at least just go through the motions just to keep the template kind of in place. So like when January 3rd comes, whenever you get your reset day, it's a little bit easier. It's not as much of a resistance to get back into it, you know? Yeah.
I was saying to you I don't know if I said this on the podcast last week, but I was saying that I got under that squat rack last week on the Monday. And I just said, I'm really over the squat. Yeah. Like I've had enough squats.
You're saying that,
I'm still going to do them, but it's like okay, enough's enough. Like I don't want to. I have no desire, I have no desire to go over like 225, 250 on squatting anymore. I'll just do volume and do other stuff, but I'm just so over the squat now.
I'm over the back squat.
Yeah, the back squat.
The back squat can kick rocks, man. Yeah. It's for me, I don't know what it's, and this is a thing where it's beyond my knowledge. I'm trying to figure it out, but I feel that like compression in my upper back.
You do it?
Like that spine compression, my tightness up in my shoulders and whatever. And I've had a couple shoulder injuries that have contributed to that. Yeah. And I've also... sleeping is a big thing for me. Yeah. I just got actually from Santa Claus. I got a pillow.
Oh, nice. What kind?
It's like a contoured like neck support memory foam that's breathable type pillow.
So far, so good.
It's awesome.
Oh, good. Because sometimes it'll fool you.
Yeah,
I got one last summer. I said, "Oh, this will be the one," and I was like, "Not the one."
That's what I was kind of tentative about, especially memory foam. It sounds good, but it can be hot, man. It can be hot, so it's hard to sleep on. But my sister actually got it for me, and it's been great.
That's so a great
far.
gift.
But it's about, let's say, 2.5 inches up, and it doesn't compress down, so it keeps your neck like elevated. Yeah. So I'm feeling like I got some more space like in my shoulders and in my traps from when I sleep. Yeah. Whereas before, if you got a flat pillow, it's like you get all jammed up and you wake up in the morning like not feeling great about it. So anyways,
funny, when someone says. It's a weird thing, but it's actually true. Someone says, like, how do you, someone walk around and they go like, oh man, I'm hurting. I slept wrong. It's like, how do you sleep wrong? Like it's all you have to do is you go in bed and you lay there. Right. How do you do it wrong? But you can actually do it wrong. You can actually do it wrong. Yeah. And when you do it wrong, it hurts.
It hurts. You get those tweaks.
From sleeping.
For sleeping. I know.
I could beat the crap out of myself all day and feel good.
That's actually better.
A bad sleep. Yeah.
It feels better to do that. Being still for too long makes you sore.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's interesting. Yeah.
I think a couple weeks ago we did a podcast on late bloomers and late birthdays and stuff like that. And I was just curious this morning. remember I asked you if you were born 2 months later, you'd be with the 95 group.
Yep.
And not that we're saying that you'd play in the NHL or whatever, but you definitely would have been drafted higher.
Oh yeah.
I would assume.
Well,
because you would have been 2 months later, you would have been. Tell me about it.
Well, I said to you when you mentioned it this morning that if I was, so my best year playing was my midget major year. That was the first year where I felt like, oh, I'm actually good at hockey. That was the first, I remember like not having, and I was always like a decent player.
Yeah, you were good.
But I never had the feel that I was good. I wasn't really confident ever. And the caveat obviously is midget major, most of the good players are gone already. So that's one factor. But the other fact, like I was much better than almost everyone that we played against in that year.
Yeah.
So I was thinking if I had that 4-month off-season span, of development before my draft year, which that's the difference between being a late birthday and an early birthday, right? If I would have had another 3-4 months, that could have been a difference for me. And now my timing is different, when I start to feel like I'm good. And that could be not true either. Like it could have just been I was in midget major and I was just better than everyone because most of the good players are gone. But it could have also been if I had that extra 4 months, maybe that makes a difference for me, Yeah.
Well, interesting. So you mentioned it. We were talking about it that week, and I was thinking about it on the way in this morning. Like 2 months later, you would have been a 95 birthday. That would have put you definitely in the upper echelon of that group of kids. Well, you were with your group of kids, but that's what I say with Charlie, right? If you would have been playing minor midget this year, it would have been.
Well, it would have put me in the upper echelon earlier.
Yeah.
So that's because I was in the upper echelon in my age group, but not till later.
Yeah.
After my draft.
Yeah. So anyways, that was something to think about. But then you mentioned a name this morning of one of the kids that was good on one of the teams.
Yeah.
And I told you this morning he was one of the guys that I felt so bad. So he was one of the kids that I said they couldn't afford memberships and time and all this stuff. So I said, just come to my pad on my garage and we'll work out. And he was one of the kids. So he was on draft day. He was at 95. On draft day, I said I knew he wasn't going to get drafted in the first 3-4 rounds, probably. But I figured he was a good. Because you even said he was a really good player.
He was a good player. Yeah. One of the names I remember. So
100%. Yeah. And so I figured I'll go pop in and hopefully celebrate with him, whether he got drafted in the 8th round or 12th round. I was going to celebrate with him and stuff. And so I went over, and they were all excited. They had a cake and all this stuff. And
mistake.
10th round comes by and he's starting to bite his nails and go nuts, and then 12th and it's like, oh no. So he went up to his room, gone. Yeah. And then that was the worst day. Overdid it.
Probably. Yeah. Well, and I was telling you a bunch of guys my age did. It was the same kind of idea where they were all one of my best friends at the time. I was at his house for the draft, and he ended up getting drafted, but much later than he thought. And then I've said this before, he was devastated. And I remember we instead of watching the draft, we went downstairs and we were playing mini sticks because he was pissed off. And I'm like, dude, you got drafted. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. But the expectation that you can put on.
So I was going a lot higher.
There's a tip for the parents. If you're not so sure, like just leave it alone. I'm not saying you can't celebrate or whatever, but it's everyone. Like you've said this before. Everyone's disappointed except the first overall pick.
Yeah.
Everybody gets disappointed. If you were second overall, you could have been first, and you weren't.
And you'll start comparing.
You start comparing. Yeah. If you go second round, you just miss first round.
Yeah.
If you miss the top 3 rounds, then it's like, oh man, now maybe I won't sign and all this kind of stuff. So you're always a little bit disappointed, even if you are mostly happy about whatever happens. But you always get that little tiny bit of disappointment. So you don't want to have that big, dog and pony show situation where you're prematurely celebrating because you don't know how the kid's going to react,
Yeah. Well, that guy there, Owen, second overall pick.
Yeah.
Ryan Merkley went first.
Yeah, I don't even know who that is.
So I got 2 more things. No, let's go with this one first. I want you to think about this. I read this one last night. The first one is something I say in different words. The second part, the first part, I'm not sure what it means. So this is from old Seneca. Remember old Seneca?
Mm-hmm.
Native. We are more often frightened than hurt. That's the part I'm not sure about. And we suffer more in our imagination than in reality. Mm-hmm. So the second part, we suffer more in our imagination than reality, is a lot of times fear and worry. Remember how I say we worry about things and they never happen, and when they do, it's like not even close to what we thought it would be.
Yep.
And we paralyze ourselves on the what ifs and what could be. And, you know, like, so if as a hockey player, a lot of the times, I'm going to go the simplest form here is if you have a big game, and you start thinking about it, and what you do is start creating anxiety, and that's kind of what it's saying there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, getting in your first hockey fight, if you think about it all the time, then it becomes worse than it could be. Your imagination is what will create fear, doubt, anxiety, and all these different things. So you got to kind of let things happen. But what do you think of the first one? We were more often frightened than hurt.
So the first part, to me, I got two examples. The first is if you think about when a baby cries, a lot of times the baby isn't hurt, it just doesn't know what's going on, which could be frightened. So,
could be.
For example, if I remember this with my baby cousin, when he was a little bit, he's 1 now, but when he was in his first 6 months, if anyone took him instead of mom, crying.
Yeah, okay.
So why are you crying? You're not hurt. He's just a little bit scared. He doesn't know where mom is. He doesn't know why he's being
maybe
that kind of idea. Or even if the kid falls. How much of it is you're hurt? How much is it that you're a little bit shocked that you fell? So, you know, you're climbing on the monkey bars and you fall off. Okay, you might have like banged your knee up a little bit, but then you cry about it. And if, you know, mom and dad play into that and say, oh my God, but some parents, like my dad, would just be like, no, you're all right. Like, you're okay. And then you cry for 3 seconds and you're like, oh yeah, I am okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the fright thing.
So, and it's kind of like, I was thinking of these things too. Is if you break a finger or you have blood, you freak out. Right. It's not necessarily that you're hurt.
A little bit of shock value.
So you learn the difference.
The other example,
so that's the physical side.
Yeah.
The mental side is the one I'm interested in.
Okay. Well, I'll give you this example, and then the other one this is where it kind of plays to the mental point. I forget where I heard the story, but a guy, I was kind of talking about this exact point. A guy stepped on a nail and it went through his boot. So obviously he's freaking out in pain, like going crazy. Goes to the hospital. They take the boot off and it didn't go through his foot. It went through his toes, in between his toes. It didn't actually pierce him at all.
What a baby!
So yeah, but there, that's a extreme example, obviously. But that's an example where, you know, he's looked at it. He's like, oh my God, I stepped on a nail. Freaks him out, and now he feels like that's the power of the mind, right? Like he tricked himself into believing he stomped on a nail, and he actually didn't. You know, and that goes into the power of belief, the placebo effect, all those types of mental games that you're
well, it's funny as you get older, that stuff plays on you. Like if I remember one time I was having felt like I knew I wasn't, but I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm having a heart attack. Like, how can I? It was stress. That's what it was. I had to just learn to breathe and stuff like that. But your mind starts to play tricks.
Right.
But I'm still thinking of a different type of mental.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was thinking, I wondered if he was saying this from the mental standpoint of more frightened than hurt. So let's just say you are a hockey player, and I'm talking emotionally. So is it, let's say you get cut from a team. Are you hurt, or are you, what's the word, frightened? Frightened of what do I get to do next? So another way to say this would be like people that are in a long-term relationship and they're maybe in love. Well, if you're in long-term, you're probably in love.
Yeah.
Well, let's say you get cheated on. And are you hurt? Probably, but are you frightened more for what's going to happen? Like, what do I do with my life now?
That's what I
was trying to. So my point to that was I was trying to get to see if you had a perspective right away on the emotional side of it.
Well, now I do.
Curious.
Now I do, because saying that, it reminds me of Jordan Peterson thing, because he uses that exact example of getting cheated on.
Okay.
Because what hit from like psychological perspective, the reason it can be so scarring is because of how wrong you were about what you thought was correct. So it's like you're in a relationship with your spouse, let's say, and you think you know this person. You think you know them inside out. You trust them. You're comfortable with them. You think you know everything about them.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you find out that you had no idea what they were about. You had no idea what they were doing. You had no idea where they were. Your trust was misplaced and all of those things. Now you've been betrayed, so to speak. And the reason that you end up being so scarred is because you're shocked that you were so sure about what was right and where you were, but you were totally wrong. Totally wrong. So, and that's why for relationships in particular, being honest is really important, because if you don't have that, people will think you're being honest until they find out you're not.
Yeah.
And now you're in a massive confusion, because if you're with this person for 10 years, then you don't know what the hell just happened for the last 10 years, because you thought XYZ.
You're rock to the core.
But yeah, it was actually ABC, you know? So it's like, how do you deal with that? And that's where now we're back to the unknown again, right? Where now you have no idea what just happened. Everything's unknown, and that's where you get your fear situation. So maybe relating it back to hockey, that I think it's that kind of thing too. Like, let's say you're a kid that played AAA your whole life, or you played junior for 2 years or whatever, and now you show up, sure you're going to make the team, and then all of a sudden you find that happened to me one year. I was on the bubble, and I had been on the team every year, and now all of a sudden I'm on the bubble, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, what am I going to do? If I get cut, like, what the hell is going to happen? And now I'm
now you're thinking, okay, my ego,
all that,
right?
Things. All that. So that's where it turns mental, right?
I was just thinking as we're talking about this, because I'm actually going to put some thought into that statement and see how it applies, because basically fear paralyzes people, right? It motivates some, but fear is something that you gotta face and go through. So sometimes understanding where your fear comes from is important. So so what was the thing in? People are more often frightened than hurt. So I'm thinking, just going to Charlie's draft, like, so when we're talking about the draft, no one's ever happy where they get drafted except for one person. So if you listen to the people, the teams, we're taking. So we had about 5, definitely. We knew he wouldn't go farther than Guelph. We knew that for sure, but you never know. But we knew that for
Almost
sure. We knew he was going to go to Guelph. That was going to be the latest. We're positive of that. But there was about 5 teams much earlier that we're taking you. Like, we're taking you. We're taking you. We're taking. So that could be when they don't take you. Does that make you fear? Well, it did actually. My son's going, Dad, I don't know if I'm going now. So that was an emotional thing.
Well, yeah, I think it all ends up going back to the unknown, right? So
yeah, that's what I mean.
So like the first team that said they were going to take him, he was like, yeah, they said, or they led on that they might take him. It's like, okay, that one comes and goes. It's like, okay, like, I thought they might, but okay. Then the second one does, and you're like, Now the third one does. And then now you're starting to get some doubt, right? Now you're starting to get like, wow, am I gonna? So you're expected to go between first round 10 pick and second round 31 or whatever. And now it's like, oh, okay, what if
28, 29, 30, you're going, maybe it's going to be 130.
Exactly. So now all the unknown comes back. It's like, I was sure though. I was sure I was going to go in one of these spots, and now I missed all of them. So did they forget about me? Am I going to not get drafted? Am I, like, all those, you can start to spin stories in your head like crazy, you know?
So that goes back to, like, that's why you have to, mental toughness is living in the moment. Certain things, there's nothing you can control. You can control what you can control. Outside of that, you can't. Anyways, that was just a little rant. I read it last night. I said, that's something I want to just throw out at you and see where your head went.
Yeah, I like that.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. I like those.
It was good.
Yeah, I like those a lot. Yeah.
So last thing before we actually podcast is you're having a date with your uncle today?
Yeah, I got a date with my uncle, yeah.
Yeah. What are you guys doing as a couple?
Going to play squash as a couple.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a date.
No, not romantic. No, not romantic. But haven't played ever before.
Okay.
So
I'm actually excited to talk about this because I can go in a ton of. I just want to
mark your spot.
I could talk about squash, not just because it's squash, but like the cross training piece all day.
Yeah. And not the vegetable, the sport.
That's right, the sport. So you're gonna play squash and you've never done it before.
Right.
So this guy here, O-Dog, and I brought Eric Wellwood and Charlie with me, and we played like a little tournament together amongst us for a couple hours. Yeah. It's the best. Yeah. It's the best. So I'm going to just go back to squash. So when I played hockey in junior, after my workouts, there was a facility that had a squash and racquetball courts in it, and badminton and all this stuff. And I used to play some tennis with my uncle, a Finnish uncle named Osko. Used to play a lot of tennis. Osko? Yeah. And I enjoyed tennis, although tennis can be a little bit slower, but it's good. Anyways, we played a reward for a good workout or completing our workouts was to go play squash, racquetball, or badminton. And
all great.
If we were ever not motivated to finish our workout, we loved those sports so much.
Yeah.
And we would add 2 hours to our day doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So much fun. The great thing about it, though, there are so many benefits of playing squash, badminton, catch. We used to do that in the backyard. You know, here's an example. This is why you should always play other sports, not necessarily like at a competitive level, but play sports, cross train a little bit, if that's the word we're going to use. We play catch all the time. I throw them grounders and stuff. But little things, right? You learn about your body. So I throw a ball to him, and as a little kid, he'd always want to turn his glove over like that and catch it with his, you know, it's just a natural thing kids do, right? So I explained to him, I said, listen, on that half of your body, when it's on this half of your body, you should be catching it open-handed, right? And get your body in front of it and stuff like that. The only time you turn your hand over is when you have to cross your body. So it took some thought, right? So like, but in his brain's being imprinted, like, oh, this is how my body should move, right? Grounders was the same thing, right? I throw some grounders. Oh, by the way, playing catch with a 5-year-old, it's nothing but pain. Pain.
Yeah.
But he got better quick.
Yeah.
But amazing how fast they are by whipping balls at you and stuff. Grounders was the same thing, right? Like there's a sense of fear of a ball coming in too hard. There's a sense of getting out of the way. And then
bounce,
teaching them to get in that squat and to scoop it and like understand
React,
that ball's not going to hurt you. If you do that, it might come up and pop you in the head, but it's not really.
Right.
But you get in front of it, then all of a sudden you become athletic and you're taking fear away, right?
Yep.
So I was just saying that he was interested in, you know, jumping on the track with me because I'd go to the track and run some hundreds.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be like his dad, right? So he'd run some hundreds with us. He did all this different cross training. Remember I told you when he was a diaper crying that he couldn't do kettlebells with that guy I was just telling him about. So I had to buy him a little kettlebell, little baby kettlebell. Anyways, squash. He started playing squash, and then he actually started getting good at it. How does squash benefit you in hockey? Well, if you think about it, not even just the physical. There is the physical. So you got hand-eye coordination like crazy. Okay. We started off with racquetball because squash was like it doesn't really bounce until you got some zip to it. So we started with racquetball just to get used to swinging a racket and whatever, getting some hand-eye coordination. Then he wanted to play the squash, which was same day, by the way, but we just went to one court to the other just to get used to it. So then as you're playing squash, all of a sudden you're judging depth perception, you're judging angle. So like, you know, you transfer that into the pucks on the boards and stuff like that. Yep. You're judging, you know, cracking the ball hard, using your wrists, or nice little soft touches. So now all of a sudden when you're going for a ball, it's a stop, it's a quick start, it's short bursts of speed. So all of a sudden you're taking these things, and again, not because it's training you for hockey, but you're doing athletic movements.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, when you go on the ice and you say, okay, we're going to do a quick start and we're going to do a stop with a load on one leg and open up your hips and go, you've done it 300 times playing squash. So now you got that kid that has done some athletic things. It's not a whole new movement that, you know, some guys on the ice, you go like, dude, just bend your hips, bend your knees, get over it. They've done it. Yep. So it's like they didn't do it because they were like really processing it. They did it because they just were playing a sport. The other side of it was like when you play a game like squash, it's because it's so different. And we didn't play by exact rules until he got a little bit older. But all of a sudden, he's trying to beat me. Now, once he started getting better, he wants to start beating me. So now the strategy of playing Guelph, why did I say Guelph? Golf, squash.
Squash.
The strategy of playing squash is different. His mind is saying, okay, dad he keeps, maybe dad's old and fat. Maybe if I get him running a little bit and I just tap a ball in the corner, I got to make him run. Oh, that didn't work. Well, why didn't that work? And all these little things, you start piecing it together, and then you got a kid that's thinking a game, and there's strategy to it. Right. So now you're combining a good sweat, some good cross training. You're learning a sport. You're doing all these different athletic movements, not hockey movements, athletic movements, and you're using your brain.
Yep.
And you're competing.
Right.
And after it, you give each other a big hug, and you go grab a bite to eat, and you love each other.
Yep.
And it's the best way it's the best gift I could have given my kid is giving him a sport and learn a sport and all that stuff. But anyways, I can't even emphasize how beneficial that is to you.
Yeah.
To a player.
So
you're going to see it.
I got a couple things. Oh, I haven't played, so I'm looking forward to reviewing it next week. But couple of things that you just said I want to highlight on that. So playing other sports as a concept, the reason it's great is obviously all those things you just said. A couple other pieces to playing a sport like squash is, you touched on it a bit without explicitly saying, is the one-on-one battle now.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas in team sports, you don't necessarily get, like, you go and practice and you can do battle drills and stuff like that, but you don't normally get that till you're older. Whereas if you play a one-on-one sport, now you're forced to be, it's me versus you. There's no hiding. Like, you can't hide behind somebody else.
Wasn't a bad pass by somebody else.
That's right. You messed up, you screwed up, or you did something well.
Very true.
And now you can start to figure it out. That's one point. The soft touches, like you're talking about, learning to play strategy. It's like you're learning how to play chess in a sport, right? So drop shots versus a hard shot, throwing it to the far corner versus keeping it close, reading what the other person is doing in order to gauge what kind of shot you should take.
Yeah.
All that stuff applies to hockey.
Yeah.
It all applies to other sports. This is why I'm not a big fan, and I know you're not either, of the like sport-specific training. The only sport-specific training is if you're playing the sport.
Yeah.
So it's like hockey on the ice is sport-specific training.
Yeah.
If you're off the ice doing something else, you're just training like an athlete.
Well, especially if you look at there's the long-term athletic development plan. That long-term development plan, it's science. It's proven that at certain ages you cannot train. For example, at 7, you can't train speed.
Yeah.
At what you can train is aiming and balance and throwing, and well, that's not very good. No, well, it's the base. It's the foundation of sports.
Right.
So, but if you look at that long-term athletic development plan, you'll notice that there's certain times in certain places, and the crossover sports is huge. Another two, we've done a lot of sports, but another two things, and again, I didn't do this for him for hockey. I did this for him because he had an interest. He did some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
He did jiu-jitsu, and to this day, he understands jiu-jitsu. He did it for months, like maybe 6 months. Not every day, maybe once a week. And he learned grabs. Oh, what does this represent? Grabbing.
Yeah.
You know, if you get in a hockey fight, there's that, right? You're learning leverage with the body. You're learning how other bodies move. You're learning resistance. Like if someone pushes on you, if you push back, you're just doing this. But if you learn how to roll with things, all of a sudden you can learn advantages. And it wasn't like we were looking to get a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but we did it for more learning. So again, your brain turns on and you have to think, because those types of sports, you have to actually think. It's not a matter of being stronger than someone or better. Yeah. So you have to activate this. You're thinking all the time. And if you're competitive, then you're thinking all the time. And the other thing we did is a lot of boxing. Yeah. And we did he played lacrosse too, which is so beneficial to hockey. But the boxing was, this is why we did boxing. First of all, I never wanted my son to be able not to be in a situation where he couldn't take care of himself if he had to. But we were going from hockey to lacrosse, and it would be like they would intertwine for like almost a month. And it's like, I want to stay home once in a while, and I don't want to be on the road. So we sat him down and said, listen, we love you playing lacrosse, but we're going to stay home this summer. So this was like when he was in Bantam, I think. So I said, you can either pick a sport or you can play house league lacrosse or whatever. He goes, no, I'll play a sport. So he picked boxing. So he boxed for a while. You know how beneficial that was?
I did the same thing. Yeah.
Huge, man.
Yeah.
You're understanding, like when you get distance, all footwork.
It's
timing.
The one-on-one, man. It's you learn the consequences. There's consequences that you can only learn if you're in a one-on-one environment, because you get to see when you succeeded and when you screwed up. You get to see it right away. Nothing teaches that better than a combat sport like boxing. If you mess up, you're eating one.
Eating one right on the
button, and it hurts. Yeah. You know? So it's like that's the best way to learn.
And the other thing is you could also learn, I thought I worked hard.
Right.
Like some of these sports, you work hard.
Oh, dude, man.
And it's a different type of workout.
Do a boxing workout.
Exactly.
Man. Like, holy Christ. I remember one summer I worked out at a old downtown Windsor Drouillard Road boxing club. And this is like...
Yeah, Rocky 5.
Oh, yeah. Salt of the earth place, man. Like, it is...
I know.
So I remember we had to do sprints outside, and there's no fancy equipment.
No.
Never. So we're outside in front of the club, and I had to run from the front door to a sewer that was about 2 blocks down and back. Those were my sprints. It was probably like 96 degrees outside. I remember, and I was 18. I wasn't a little kid. And that was one of the hardest workouts I've ever, to this day, I remember my trainer looking at me like, I don't know if you're going to pass out or die, but I don't know, man. Yeah. So, and that's another benefit. You do other sports, you get to feel other stimulus, you know, 100%. And that's huge.
I remember in boxing, the first one I went to, because my brother was a really good boxer. So we went, same thing. It was we were in a tin can shed. This is the boxing club with a big ring and all dirty, gross shit equipment. Hotter than I can't say my saying because there's a lot of swear words in it, but hot. And first thing was, okay, we'll start off with a run. And we ran and we ran and we ran and we ran and we ran. Hot. Came back. He goes, all right, grab a rope and skip for whatever. He goes skip, and then I'll get you starting with your footwork after. So I'm skipping, and it's like, if you've never really skipped, I always did some skipping, but if you haven't put time into skipping and you're at the 5-minute mark.
Oh my God, dude. 10 straight minutes of skipping is devastating if you're not used to that.
And he just kept going and going. I'm like, what the hell? So then after that, it was just footwork and handwork, making sure your feet and hand work. And I'm like, well, this isn't fun, but oh boy, did I learn a lot. But as you go, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
You know? So the last piece with that is, like, for me, is that, am I thankful? Oh my God. And I didn't do this on purpose. I did this like partially so that he can take care of himself if he had to, but he combined all the different cross sports, and, you know, he got in a couple tilts in the OHL so far, and he has a clue. But you can imagine a kid going in and facing his first fight possibly and not knowing what to do. I mean, you could go on and think that you just chuck him as hard as you can, and you could wake up looking at the lights, or maybe you win because you're nuts, or you're just tough. But
wow. I know. Yeah, well, the last two for me on that is the most important two things, especially when you're a kid, because that's why we always talk about, that's why we think it's important to play other sports, is you get to learn by default without it being you're consciously trying to teach. Like, you can keep it fun, and kids will just figure it out by default by playing other sports, you know? So they get to learn coordination and balance and movement and staying on their toes and being athletic and springy and all that kind of stuff. And an example of that, it's still hockey, but using the treadmill we have here. A lot of times that's what I say to parents because they ask them questions about using it. And it can be a really good tool if used appropriately. And especially when kids are little, because they don't know, if I explain mechanics to a 8-year-old, they don't know what I'm talking about, and they don't care.
That's right.
But they're going to take 1,500 strides on the treadmill. So by default, they're going to start to figure out movement patterns that feel nice. And then that's my last point. The most important thing of all of that, what you said at the very start, was you learn your body. You learn how to move. And that's
proprioception.
Yeah, and that's the benefit, and what I tell a lot of people, even adults that don't want to be active or don't want to go exercise or all that kind of stuff. It's like, just to be functional in life, you need to learn how to move your body. It's not about being a physical specimen. It's just, you need to know how to move. I was moving a couch the other day, and I was moving a couch, and the guy that I was moving it with.
Thanks for the call, by the way.
I'm observing how he's lifting the
straight
couch.
Back.
Rounded back, like, so he's got almost straight legs, arch back, and you can get away with it because the couch isn't that heavy. But when things get a little bit heavier, I'm getting like a deep goblet squat going to lift this thing. So, and I'm just comparing it. I'm like, this kid's never either has only played one sport or hasn't played a bunch of sports or never was taught how to move properly. So now for the rest of his life, unless he goes and tries to do that kind of training, he's never going to figure out how to move things correctly or how to move his body properly, you know, which is not ideal. So
I wanted to go over, we had a couple questions, and so this is going to turn the theme of these questions are basically promoting themselves, or that's what it is. Okay. So the first question that someone had is, I'd like to hear your take on making a highlight video to send out to colleges or US teams, even if a player's a grinder or he's a grinder. So my take on that is, 100%. Like, we did, I've always heard about this when I talked to colleges, and they said, go ahead and send some video because we want to hear from you, because there's people that slip through the cracks, right? And, excuse me. And when we talked to College Hockey Inc., we had a podcast with them. I became... got a pretty good relationship with those guys, and they said, like, send videos to coaches, and because they want to see you, coaches and recruiters and stuff like that.
Sorry, that's actually a really good episode that I want to, because that's one of our first ones, so I want to throw that up again because people don't. A a lot more people listen now than when we had that one out. So I think it's like episode 4 and 5. 4 is college hockey, 5 is OHL recruiter, and it kind of goes through the ins and outs of what they're looking for. So if you haven't listened to that one, that's a really good one to listen to. Anyhow, sorry.
Yeah. So here's the thing though. Yes, go ahead and send videos. Now, doing the videos yourself, like that's probably going to be as much work as playing hockey. But if that's like, it goes again to like, if you want to be a hockey player, if you want things to happen for yourself, sometimes you gotta do it, right? So great. Make sure you're playing good hockey though. But here's the key: is the words used in this sentence was, should I send a highlight video? No. Why would I say no when I just said yes? Because the word highlight video sucks, in my opinion. So one of the things that I told kids, like I had a program where if they brought it, I wasn't going to go video games, but if they brought in some shifts of their games or a game and they cut it up for me, or something along those lines, where they brought it in and I would go over kids' videos, because it's actually a very effective tool for teaching. So out of all the kids that I trained, 2 people, 3 people did it, maybe 4, brought in video, and I went over, you could do this better, and it was very helpful for them. Yep. But the best is I had one that, not a bad player, actually, I don't want to say where he's playing. He's playing at a pretty high level. Sent me all his goals. That's a highlight video. That's not hockey.
Nothing to look at. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how you want me to help you with this. And then, I told Dad, I said, no, cool goal. Yeah, awesome. You're in Bantam and you got a goal. Great. Show me video. So then he just keeps sending me highlights of the goals. It's like, well, that no one's gonna understand a hockey player if I watch you score a goal. Yeah. There's no context behind it. How did the goal start? How did it finish? What'd you do in between? Yeah. So my recommendation on that is send either a game or 2 or 3, or just your shifts.
Yeah, full shifts.
A bunch of them, because they want to see what you look like in the D zone. They want to see what you look like in the O zone, neutral zone. Do you finish your hits? Are you lazy? Your body language and all those kind of things. And the great thing about that, so obviously, send some stuff if you want. You're going to throw some mud on the wall. Not every team is going to be impressed, and maybe only one team, maybe none. But it's worth doing.
Might not even answer.
That's right. But it's worth doing if this is something that you want to do. And there's a lot of schools out there, and maybe some schools that never get to your end of the town or end of the world. Who knows? But I think it's very important if that's something that you want to do. A lot of people do it, but the important thing is you're not sending highlight reels.
Yeah, so I got a couple thoughts on that.
Good.
If you're gonna put a bunch of goals together, like everyone has 7 or 8 goals they scored during the year.
Yeah.
And the goals always look nice. Like there's not a bad goal.
Yeah.
Right. So if you jam one in front of the net, it's like, oh look, he's in front of the net. Good. Yeah. If you have a nice dangle and score, it's like, oh, that looked nice. Whatever. It's good passing play and you score. It's like everyone has a handful of those that they can cut and put in a video. It's like what you're saying is important though. You're trying to show how do you play. And showing just goals doesn't show how you play. So if you're going to cut full-length shifts, that would be the style that you want to go through to actually 100%. So they can learn a little bit about you instead of just here's my goals. It's like everyone's just going to send them their goals, So it's got to be actual footage of you playing. And then if you're going to do that, then you also have to be ready for the rejection, like you just mentioned at the end.
Yeah.
So most of the time, a school is not going to answer you. Most of the time. Especially if you're just sending it like cold email from you, unless you actually do some good research of maybe there's a avenue they have where you can submit video that gets looked at or whatever. And schools have that where you're supposed to email a specific person or whatever. So you have to do some research on where you should send what you're sending. And then the other part of it is you need to keep in mind that the person that you're sending from, like the people that are watching your stuff aren't dumb. Okay.
Watching
your
video, the scouts and stuff.
Yeah. So if you send your video to someone, they're not dumb. Like this is what their job is. So you're not tricking them.
No.
So you got to keep that in mind. So and most of the time, if you don't have, like you said, someone that's going to send things for you or do work for you, then there's a fine line. I'm going to throw back to you on this one because there's a fine line between when is it crazy dad with the video camera in the stands? Is dad the one that's putting together your package to send, and what is he putting in it?
Yeah.
And so it's a fine line between you're actually trying to honestly promote yourself versus you're being nuts, man.
Okay, so
So I want to talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so number one, this goes to, that's the caveat, is that you are actually good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we had someone that played with, I'm not going to say the name. He's got a whole video website, and Dad's got it, even like practice 3-on-3 and highlights and puts the comments and stuff. And it's like, he's the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of our, like barely made the team. And he's got this whole website on how great he is. And he's going to send that to colleges, and it's going to be cheap. They might show it to a few people and they get a good laugh. The caveat is that you're a good player. So how do you know if you're a good player? Well, if you're supposed to be a goal scorer, then you're scoring a ton of goals. If you're getting a lot of points. If you're a power forward, so now a power forward and you're actually dominating games, or you're actually feeling like you're like one of the top players all the time, then you have a reason to send your stuff out. But so one of the things you might want to do with that is that if, like, say you're a power forward or a stay-at-home D, the highlights aren't necessarily, they're not highlights. So in that, and of course it's got to come from the kid. No one wants to hear from mom and dad, especially at this level. So the kid needs to do it because it's your dream, it's your whatever. It takes responsibility. Anyway, so if you're a stay-at-home D, there's not a lot of highlight packages. So like in your intro, like you probably put a letter together or whatever saying that this is who I feel that I am. So I think I can help your team. So I'm a 6'3", 18-year-old defenseman. I've had 11 points this year, but I feel like I'm a really good stay-at-home D. I take my responsibility as a defenseman very, very seriously. I make other people's lives miserable, and I think I can help your team if that's a need that you would have. Well, every team needs that. If you're a power forward, explain why you're a power forward and make sure the videos match your words.
Right.
Talk's cheap, right? Mm-hmm. And if you do that, that might open some eyes. But if you just send a video and it's like a spam email, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so the key on that, you get a very different response if you send it yourself versus dad sends it or agent sends it or whoever. Because and people, some schools are different. I remember when I was talking to schools, some of them really liked talking to an advisor agent person, and some wouldn't answer the phone if it was an agent person. So it's not like one is bad or good or whatever, and you don't need one or the other. It doesn't necessarily matter. But in any circumstance, if it's coming from you, that you'll get an extra. That's a plus. Whereas if you're getting it from dad, now we're looking at it with questions immediately. So it's like it's not. I don't want to say it's a negative if dad sends things, but
no, it is. Let's be honest.
But let's say you're 15 years old, right? And if you're in the States and you want to go to school or whatever, you would maybe start sending things out that early, like your first year of junior. Maybe you don't know.
It's not necessary.
Maybe whatever. Maybe you don't know.
I feel like we're fighting.
But maybe you don't know how to navigate.
Yeah.
How to figure out how to send, and
dad
you need
can
help, and
you.
dad can help, and all that kind of stuff.
You.
That's fine. But if it's like when you get texts, or when scouts and agents that you talk to will get texts from dads, and they'll literally send you the text that the dad sent, and they'll be like, this guy?
Yeah.
So it's like immediately it's a red flag as opposed to being a positive. Whereas 100%. If it's signed 16-year-old Johnny at the bottom, it's like, whoa, this kid sent me this. Okay, let's actually take a look at this because the kid did it.
Well, it's no different than two scenarios. When people come in here and ask for jobs, when dad comes in with a mustache, it says, "Hey, Andy, Buckshot's looking to work. Do you have any room for him?" The answer is no.
Yeah, no.
The answer is absolutely no.
Yeah, I agree.
If the kid came in, now you can sit down, we'll talk.
Right.
And what was the other one I was going to say? Something along those lines.
Well, it was like, if you remember, you can cut me off. It was like the scout we had the other day.
Yeah.
He was saying one of the things they're looking for is take care of your own shit.
Yeah.
And that's the start of that. You can write a letter, and if you get someone to edit it, if you're not the best at English class, like get someone to edit your letter so it sounds coherent and there's not spelling mistakes and grammar errors, that's fine. So it's not that people can't help you. You don't have to do every single thing yourself.
Yeah.
But like you said, and I like the kind of more of a cover letter idea where you explain who you are and you explain who you play like.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. If you can identify someone you play like that isn't Connor McDavid, then that actually shows you did some analysis and you put some thought into it. And then you attach videos of just your shifts together, of your actual shifts, so they can see how you play the game. It's not just the time you went bar down.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now we actually have something to work with, and this kid sent it to me.
Yeah.
So that's a strategy.
There's a thing like, I never lose a face-off. Watch the videos.
Yeah, and there's I guess the whole point of all this is there's a right way to do it and a wrong way.
Yeah.
And if you want to do it a way where it's beneficial and people actually take you seriously, then you kind of do it the way we're talking about. If you want it to be a red flag where people go into looking at your stuff already skeptical, then you're going to have mom and dad do it and you only show your goals and your dad explains how good you are, or your agent or whoever you think is supposed to promote you or whatever,
Yeah, the other side that I was going to say is that also when a dad comes in at an appropriate age, so let's say, I would even say 14, 15, that's when a kid needs to start advocating for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And when a dad comes in and says, hey, do you have any ice? My kid really wants to get some ice. Oh, I sent you a text the other day about ice, like whatever, any programs you got going on. Oh, yeah, I got it. Buckshot can send me one. Yeah. When he asks me, I'll respond. Yep. It just makes me want to actually help the kid.
For sure.
When dads do it, I'm like,
yeah. Well, and it's just a life thing. That's the reason you gave me a job.
Yeah.
Was because I was always coming to you, me asking you, and not that my dad never asked you for guidance, but when I was 15 and 6, like I would email you. I would come and ask you questions myself. I would look for advice. Hey, I remember in junior asking you for ice. Do you have early ice in the morning? And I came and skated with the 10-year-old you had or whatever, just because I needed ice at the time. And I did that. And then now you actually take me serious.
Absolutely.
And then look I got an opportunity to work here, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So it's not just a hockey thing. It's just a life thing.
No.
So
that's all I had about that is like, send the videos 100%, promote yourself, do it the right way. Add a little bit of zip and need a word, man.
Personality?
Yeah, personality or confidence, or like that you care. You're not just throwing mud on the wall and hopefully you're going to get back to me and give me a scholarship. I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to tell you about myself. I've got a pretty accurate description of myself. This is where I want to go. Like, not that you say Wisconsin. That's where I want to go, but where I want to end up after that is this, and that's why I'm willing to work hard and go through the process.
Yeah,
and it doesn't have to be. Your letter doesn't have to look like you just like the receipt that you get at IKEA.
Yeah.
But it's got to be concise and with some points that I'm confident and follow up.
Yeah,
and these are just about when you want things out of life. Sometimes it's hard.
Okay, so I got a side tangent here, so I don't know how long this is going to take, but so I had a young kid. He's 07, and he's been asking me the last couple weeks, when are you guys going to do a podcast about the importance of school? And he's kind of saying it as a joke and kind of not. And this is why it's important to have a brain. This is exactly the reason why, because it doesn't matter that you can do the equation of a line. It matters that you can solve a problem and you know how to act appropriately, act professionally, act all that stuff. So if you're 14, 15, 16, and you now need to send a letter to a coach, you better be able to formulate a paragraph that makes sense, man. And if you never go to school or you don't care about writing your essays or you don't want to pay attention to doing any of that, well, now these are skills that you're going to have to relearn later. Yeah. And we've talked about that before. That's why it's important. It's not important that you get a 95 in English class because Shakespeare is important. It's actually not important,
Right.
It doesn't matter what happened to Macbeth. No one cares.
I was going to say Macbeth. It's the only one I know.
I know.
Oh, no. Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. Right? Hamlet.
Yeah,
so all these, it's not important for the sake of, unless you're really into English class, which go ahead.
Yeah.
But
God bless you. Never wrote in.
I needed the No Fear Shakespeare version. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about unless I had the translated version. Mm-hmm. But the ability to formulate an argument and advocate for yourself and sound professional, people take you serious if you do those things.
Yeah.
So and I get messages all the time, and because I have this type of mind, I'm always so curious reading and interested to see how they're writing to us.
100%.
And some of them will write paragraphs and there's a missing punctuation and there's no capital and they repeat the same thing 10 times, and they're kids. I'm not judging how you're sending your.
Some are junior guys.
Yeah, but some of them are not, right? Some of them are junior. It's like you're 18 years old and your sentences don't make any sense. Yeah. I get the gist of what you're saying, but you sound like an idiot.
Yeah.
So
I'll decipher and I'll hopefully come up with a question.
Yeah, right. So this is as a little side note. This is why it's important to take not school, but educating yourself seriously, because then you can do these things later. So if you're Connor McDavid, you don't have to worry about that. You advocate for yourself by playing and being the best ever. That's one way. But if that's not you, if you're a kid that needs to advocate for yourself a little bit, which most kids are going to end up needing to do that at some point, then you need to be able to do that and not sound like a total idiot.
Yeah.
Or on interviews, you see that some of these kids, like OHL, their first interview, and it's their first interview, you're nervous, whatever. But can you speak or no? you know, because if you can't, then that's the one that's the video you don't want to keep.
Yeah.
You know, let's say you end up on TSN most embarrassing moments or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah.
there's my side tangent.
I like it.
Yeah.
The second question we had was, I watch a lot of your videos. My question: a lot of my peers get AP'd, which is I think Andy Paquette, no, affiliate player, or LOIs, which is a letter of intent, and I had to turn my brain on for those. Okay, so a lot of my peers get APs or letters of intent. I'm happy for them, but why am I not seeing the same success with when I produce like them? That was
that makes sense.
Okay, when I produce like them. And I have the similar. I produce like them, and I have the similar attributes. I know I have to keep grinding. How do I avoid the frustration?
Good question.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
So again, okay. So now it comes down to actually, I wrote an answer down. My first thought was that is there something missing in your game? 100%. So points in production is not the best indication of what type of player you are. So you can, and comparing yourself to your teammates and guys in the league, like, I mean, we kind of do that naturally, but it's not fair. Like if you do comparisons, it's never fair. Because if you compare yourself to someone better than you, then it's just, they're better than you. Compare yourself to someone worse than you, then, well, yeah, then you look like a hero. But points are not the best indication. My question would be, like, if you have 20 points now in 20 games, how did you get those points? What did you do after and in between? And who are you playing with and who are you playing against? Like there's a lot of things that could give you your points or your production. The real question is what in your game are you missing? And this is where you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be, and this is, sometimes it's really hard to be honest with yourself and analyze your game. And the caveat again is always, where do I want to be in hockey? So obviously this player here wants to get to a higher level. Now, want is a tricky word because you either would like to or you want to. And if you really want to, you're going to sit there and analyze your game and be honest with yourself and find gaps in your game. The second way that you can do this, if you're really honest with yourself, is you might want to look at someone that can actually analyze your game for you, your coach. Someone that watches you a lot, or bring video or whatever. Someone that could sit down and actually be honest with you and say, yeah, you go really hard when you have the puck, but your D zone absolutely stinks. You don't know how to play without the puck. You haven't finished one hit. You're brain dead. Like whatever the gaps are, and then you can say, okay, how do I go about fixing it? And it might seem like a big task, but it's a necessary task if you want to get somewhere.
Yep.
So find the hole. Maybe you get to places, but you're the ugliest skater in the world. Again, I don't know how old you are. I don't know what your game's like. I don't know. I haven't seen you skate, shoot, or whatever. But there's obviously, in my opinion, something missing in your game, and that's it's important that you figure it out.
Yeah, I think because I answered the kid and I said basically what you just said, but the key is from his description of the question, he's saying I produce like them and I have similar attributes as them, so why are they getting noticed and I'm not? And the honest truth is that's probably not true entirely. So the being honest part is so important, because if you're producing like them, you have the same attributes as them, that means you're the same as them, you would be getting the same attention as them, and you're not, but you're saying you're not. So that means there's something is not aligned with your description of the situation. So obviously everyone has a bias towards themselves. So you might be, you say this a lot, overestimating yourself and underestimating how good your competition is. And that could be your teammates or the guys you're playing against. So it's really important that you try to be as honest as possible and get objective, or as objective as possible, criticism about where you're missing. Because if you play on the first line with two guys that are great, you might be getting all the same points as them, but maybe they're doing all the work, or maybe they're the ones that are making the difference. And if they put you on a different line, all of a sudden you're irrelevant, So and I'm not saying that's necessarily the case. I don't know the situation. I haven't seen this kid play.
And I was going to say that, and we'll go back to that stuff. The other side of it is that you just might have to grind it out.
Yep.
Like you might actually be the guy that is getting overlooked. or whatever. Like there might be something. And I just threw a couple things here, right? Like I used Sean Day for an example. That's what you saw Sean Day on here. So Sean Day, I've trained Sean Day. He was an exceptional status in the OHL. Went fourth overall, I think it was. I don't personally think he should have been an exceptional status, but he's one of the best skaters you've ever seen. Played in the OHL, and then he got drafted to the New York Rangers and never panned out. But anyways, he was drafted in 2015, I think, 2016, something like that. And he had his first NHL game last night.
Yep.
What is it, 2021?
Yeah,
almost 22.
Yep.
So I'm not really getting math. 6 years?
Yep.
Before he went from first exceptional status in the OHL to getting his first NHL game.
Right.
And he's probably, and I know, well, I'll tell you how it was. He was always questioning, like, but I'm great.
Yeah.
You know, like he was an exceptional status. Why isn't this working out? People saw gaps in his game that he didn't see. I could give you a list, the same thing as the IKEA list of things that he needed to get better at. Attitude, not saying he was a jackass, but he needed to have a better work ethic. He needed to show better body language. He had to do more thinking. He couldn't just rely on his skating.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He had a good skater, good shot, and then after that, it was like, So, anyways, he got his first game. So, at the end of the day, he got there.
Yeah, right.
And my point of that is that your time, if you do the work and you find those little things to work on, then your opportunity is going to come if you're good enough.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So, when Seabass was here over the break, I was asking him how things were going, and going back to you need to figure out where your gaps are, kind of thing. So he was telling me that he talked to his coach, whatever, and that his coach put a real nice message about him in their team group chat. And I was like, oh, freaking right on, man. Like, that's awesome. So he sent it to me. So I'm going to read a piece of it because I don't think he'll care. So at some point, he was doing something wrong. His coach gave him some feedback on it, and he fixed it. So basically what he was playing on the wall in his D zone, getting a pass, and he was turning back towards his own corner instead of going up ice. So in the group chat, the coach sent a video of him not doing that. He fixed it. He would get it, and he was moving it up ice. So just like the first sentence of the message was, he's number 15. So he was 15, shoulder check and play north. Previous game turned back and never shoulder checked. Anyone wonder why he is A, playing up in the lineup, B, getting better, and C, going on the PP today? He listens. Not listens, but actually listens. Absorbs information and makes the adjustments to his game. And on and on. So what my point in bringing that up is sometimes, most of the time probably, is it's not big things that are the difference, it's little things. So if you're, for this guy's message saying we're looking at points, or I'm producing as much as they are, I'm assuming that means points production.
Yeah, for sure.
So that oftentimes isn't the metric that the coach is looking at.
That's right.
That or the scouts are looking at.
That's right.
They're looking at, can you play the game?
Yep.
And this is an example of a small play. Like, you would think that's nothing. You know, you get the puck on the wall as a winger, and he turned back towards his own end instead of moving it up ice right away.
Yep.
And that was a problem. And when scouts see that, those are the little things. They look at little things like that. Are you playing north-south? Are you playing in the style that our team plays? And the way that Saginaw plays, like they were saying before, they're a puck possession team. They want to play skill. They don't want to play dump and chase and all that kind of crap, and playing fast. And if you don't do that, that's an issue. That has nothing to do with points. Like, I never said points there. I didn't say goals, assists. I didn't say that. So if you're being scouted or being looked at, or when you're saying I'm not getting noticed the same way that these other kids are, then look to the little things. Don't look to the big plays. Like, yeah, you can hit that guy on the tape. Great. That's baseline. Yeah, you can rip the puck. Great. That's baseline. It's the little in-between things. Do you do those things properly? Because those are oftentimes the difference makers of whether you can play at the next level or not.
Yeah.
You know, because everyone is good at the skill stuff. You know, so if you're using skill-based metrics, which is points or whatever, then that's not necessarily the reason why you're not getting noticed. It's probably something that's outside of that.
Yeah.
You know,
well, but even speaking of that, so when we were skating at Christmas, I was saying to Charlie, we had a handful of guys, but we had with Charlie and Seabass, I'll use their names because they wouldn't care. I noticed Charlie's shot was not the way it was when he left here.
Yeah, you're saying that, yeah.
Stick handling, he said, is not that good. I thought it was fine. Seabass, there's a couple gaps that we worked on that he kind of went back to. Whose responsibility is that to keep it up?
Yeah,
it's yours. So
same in the gym too. Same in the gym. We did the same conversation.
Yeah. But so my point is not, I'm not giving them shit or anything. It's not what it was about. It's like what happens is when you're playing the game and you're doing the practice, what happens, you get in a grind, you get in a habit, and sometimes going to the rink is just, got to get another practice, right?
Yeah.
Another practice, got to listen to this friggin' guy bark about the same shit all day, right? And I don't feel like it today. So you work on just not making mistakes. You work on executing properly. What can happen is you're just whatever basic skills that you have, if you like, they can kind of diminish because you're not putting the mental focus on it. So
the intent
for
goes,
him with
the
the
purpose
shot,
goes, all that stuff.
for him with a shot.
Yeah.
So because he's played more of a power forward role and not handling the puck as much, he hasn't maybe he's put more attention on getting pucks out of his zone, different things like that, right? So his shot, not that it's shit, but it wasn't that crisp. So we just spent some time and just went over a couple details, and then after about half an hour, he was starting ripping pucks again. So after 5 days, 6 days, it was like, now Dad, I can shoot again. Not that he couldn't shoot, but it's like, now that's the shot that you were. So it was the same with stick hand. We spent a little time on the basics. Boom. So I was telling him, like, when you go back, it's not that they're gaps, but you want to keep your best attributes the best, and then work on your weaknesses. So like pick a day and go, okay, I'm going to shoot with a purpose, not just shoot. We talked about this in our last podcast. Yeah. Not just going to shoot 100 pucks. Shooting 100 pucks does diddly shit if you're not actually doing it with a purpose. Shoot for accuracy, shoot for quickness, like focus on your mechanics. That's work. Stick handling, focus on things that are going to maybe need to keep your agility up, right? So work on 5 minutes of agility like twice a week,
right?
And then on the other stuff. So anyways, this person, find some of your weaknesses, ask somebody who can help you with that, and give you some actual tangible stuff, and then it's up to you to go fix it. And there's no rush. There's time, man.
Yeah,
totally. You know, and again, we talked about this all the time. You never know who's going to make it, right? Owen, right? Like, you're drafted second overall in the OHL. You're supposed to be in the NHL right now, right? Either guys really screwed up, right, or whatever, right? There's something that happened, right? That doesn't mean that anything's over. It just means that, okay, we got to readjust, recalibrate.
Yeah, totally.
Anyways,
yeah. So maybe kind of heading towards wrap up here. I want to circle back on the comparison thing.
Yeah,
is number one, and then the idea of kind of advocating for yourselves, because we're talking about self promotion, right? And when you go and ask questions and you try to get better and you show that you care, that is another way that you're promoting yourself. It's not just send a video of my highlights. It's your day-to-day behavior. You can be promoting yourself every day, you know, by the way you talk to people and that kind of stuff. So by going and talking to your coach and asking questions and trying to figure out how to get better, or when you're doing your skill practices, actually being intentional and working on things properly. Not just like one example, we were talking with Charlie and Seabass and a couple other guys. I was just kind of giving them a reminder of what the point of the off-ice training is. Because like you said, you get into the day-to-day grind of, I got to finish this workout, I got to finish this skate, I got to finish all this kind of stuff. And I was saying to them, the point of the off-ice part during the season is not to be a bagger. Like, you're getting your bagger every day. You're on the ice every day.
Yeah.
The intensity's there. So don't go in the gym and get more intensity. Like, that's not what the goal should be. It should be to maintain, like you were talking about with skill work. Yeah. You're trying to maintain your baseline. So what I always talk to them about, minimum effective dose type stuff. So if you want to maintain your strength, 2 sets a week, heavy. And that should not be enough if you're maintaining right from the start of the season. If that shouldn't be enough to make your legs sore for 5 days. No. Right? So you're keeping the volume low and the intensity low. So you do a set and then literally take 4 minutes, roll out, stretch between. Like, you don't have, it's not about the pace.
That's right.
And so they were talking to me about their workouts, how they'll give them kind of similar to the template that I would run, but they run it like a circuit. And it's just like, get through it. Like, I just want to get through it. And that shouldn't be what you're trying to do. You already have intensity. You don't need to go and do a circuit.
Yeah.
You're doing your intensity on the ice. So slow it down. Just do intentional sets. It might take you a half hour to do 8 sets. And that's fine, because the point is not pace. That's not what we're trying to do. Yeah. So just recalibrating them to make sure they know what's going on. But those are the questions that maybe they stopped asking, right? Because it's easy to start to let things slip during the season. So
100%. You're tired, right?
Yeah, you're gassed, right?
Tired and your body's sore.
And that's the mentality is I just need to get through this. Rather than you can say, I actually don't need the pace on this. Great. Yeah. Now I can just go slow and that's fine. Yeah. You know, it's like when you're doing your skill work, you have to go slow before you go fast. You need to be slow sometimes. So all that is to say that that piece of going and trying to talk with people and ask questions and making sure you're advocating for yourself by doing those types of behaviors is really important. And then the second part, because when I answered this kid, the last thing I said, and I don't know if you had anything else, but whatever. I said, don't get too caught up in the successes and failures of other people. And that kind of goes to your comparison idea, because one of the kids that he plays in the OHL was talking to us, and he was always mentioning this other kid on the team. And every time he would do that, I would say, you don't need to worry about that guy. That guy does not affect your game. There's nothing what he does, his behavior, him getting more opportunity or not, shouldn't have any effect on what you're doing. Yeah. And sure enough, now this guy that we got, it flipped, right? Yeah. He's getting more opportunity than this other guy. So I was like, now think about the first 2 months of the season where you're wasting all this time and breath on this other kid on your team, and now it doesn't matter because now you passed him anyways. So was it worth all the frustration that you had at the start of the season thinking about it? No, because things are constantly changing, you know? Yeah,
and you can't look through life through a straw. Yeah. Like, for example, there's a lot of first rounders or second rounders that aren't getting a ton of ice. And they might look at another team, and a kid that was drafted later is getting ice and maybe even some points. Yeah. And they were drafted later than me. It's like, I suck. Because I did that my first year. Yeah. We're sitting there going.
Everyone did.
Yeah. You know, I was a high pick, and I looked, and I'm like, oh, man, I only got 9 points. Like, this guy's, I'm better than him. And it starts playing with you. Then you start thinking you're failing. But then, like, a lot of these kids are in such a good program with a good. So here you go. You might be a first round pick on a good team, a really good program with a lot of depth, right? So number one, you can't be on the first line, second line, third line. You're lucky to get fourth line minutes. Okay, you're learning the league, so now you got to have the right attitude. So if you look at someone that's playing on a weaker team, getting more ice, getting maybe some points, and maybe getting some glory, it could play with you, but it has nothing to do with you because your situation again. 5 years down the road, this might be the best thing for you because you're learning a system, you're earning trust, you're learning to play the right way.
Well, who did we talk about? Was it Evangelista we were talking about the other day?
Well, I was saying that to Charlie, like, and it wasn't Charlie bitching or anything. I was just saying because every kid wants to get their points, right? Yeah. And and actually, the reason I'm interested in Evangelista is because when I was talking to the scout for Philadelphia, he was telling me and Charlie were talking to him, and he said, like, when you go into this first year, and he goes, you're lucky you got a burn year because he's got 3 years instead of 2. Yeah. Because this is actually good for you. He goes, but when you go into this year, don't think you're going to be different than anyone else. He goes, and he used Luke Evangelista for an example. He goes, when we interviewed him, he told him, he goes, I thought that I was a first round pick, and I was going to go to London, and I was going to get some points, and I was going to play my game. And he goes, I made the mistake of thinking that I was going to be different than everybody, and I realized that I'm not. I'm just a first-year guy. And so that conversation with that scout stuck with me, and I reminded Charlie of that not to focus on the points. So Evangelista, his first year as a first-round pick, had, I think, 22 games or 27 games, and he had 4 assists. That's it. So if you look at those numbers, you're going, what a waste of pick that was. First round, 4 points, 27 games. Wow. Well, no one sees the depth of why. Right. They have a great team. They have a great number one. They have a great team, and they play to win they play to win. You'll develop the next year, and then the next year he came in and he got a lot of points and played. But it's having the patience and the mindset to get through it. Yep. Right. So that's what I tell Charlie all the time is like, when you see someone getting ice or opportunities, just forget about it. His coach has been in either the NHL or the OHL for the last 32 years. He's seen you 1,000 times. He knows, and I trust him. I trust him as a coach for my son. I do, 100%. And sometimes I sit there and I go, man, like, Charlie could have did that, like, as a dad. But then I sit back and go, no, don't worry about it. Like, get through it. So he gets through it. And the point is that be good at your 3, 4, 5 things that he gives you to do. Be the best at it. Because next year when you get more ice and stuff, you're going to dominate at that piece, and that's better. Long term, you're gonna be a better hockey player. That's my point.
Yeah, for sure. So that kind of wraps up what I had to say about it with that comparison thing at the end. Like that's the most important thing that I can say because I remember doing that when I played too. It's like you're always looking at the next guy that's your age doing better than you and whatever. You're always looking outward, but just focus on yourself and you got to find your own path because everyone has a different path.
So wrapping her up a little bit, promoting yourself. A lot of people think, and you could kind of tighten this up for me. A lot of people think that you need your agent, you need people representing yourself, and in certain times and places that may be beneficial, but probably not till later on. The best way to promote yourself is being a really good hockey player and do things right, body language, work ethic, and all that stuff. But your what you do on the ice is the best way to promote yourself. Period.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. It's the agent thing, just to touch on that quick. Episode 36 or 39, we talk about agent stuff. The agent's not supposed to be a promoter. That's not what they're supposed to be. We talked about that in depth. That when you get a contract or whatever, that's when they're useful. That's when they're helpful. They can help you navigate, the business space of hockey and all that kind of stuff. But it's not. And we're seeing kids still. Man, we just saw another one the other day. Got an agent who he has no business having an agent. There's no need for him to have an agent, and he's just going to spend $2,500 on an agent for zero.
Yeah.
Not going to do anything because he thinks he's going to promote him. That's 100% motivation number one.
I know.
Is he's going to promote me and he's going to help me get opportunities, and that's not what they do. They're not going to do that because you have to be good enough,
Yeah.
And you can go like is the agent going to go call a team and say, hey, can my kid come to your camp? You can do that.
Yeah.
You can do that. You can send the letter. You can do that. That's all. If any promoting, that's all that they're going to do for you is make a call and try to do whatever. And unless it's someone who's super reputable, which if you're paying money for them when you're 15, they're not, then that you could do that work, So that's a good point too. Like, don't think that you need to go get somebody to do the work for you because you're either going to get noticed yourself by being good enough, or you're going to get bonus points for trying to promote yourself and going and talking to the coaches and being a good player and all that kind of stuff that we talked about.
Yeah.
So that's a good point there to finish off on. Anything else on your end over there, or are we all good?
No, you were going to say something about like promoting yourself. A lot of people move, and we'll just take 2 seconds.
Oh, no, yeah. Well, I'm not rushing. We can.
Oh, okay. I thought you had to go play squash.
I have.
I'd rush out of here.
I got some minutes. You're good. No rush.
Yeah. So you were saying something like a lot of times you see people moving, and feeling like that's a better thing to do, move away because they'll be in a better spot, and tighten it up if you want.
Okay, so the difference because some of this stuff it like turns into a little dichotomy thing, right? So if you're it's a good word. If you're living in our area, we don't have junior A, and if you don't play in the OHL right away, it's like, where do you play? And so the junior league we have around here isn't the best junior league. So if you play at the highest level outside the OHL here, you're playing junior B, and our junior B league isn't that great. So what a lot of kids do is they'll play for a year and then try to go out and play in BC or try to make a move up to the OJ or whatever because they're getting more notice in those leagues. And that's true. That's what happens. And that's a good path to follow.
Yep.
So what the difference between that and then jumping team to team to try to get better personal opportunity on each of these teams, there's a difference there to talk about. So it's one thing to have a thought out plan of, okay, I want to end up playing at a Division I school. So I'm going to develop in my area and then I'm going to move out when it's time to move out because that's where the getting's good kind of thing. That makes sense. That's a plan.
Sense.
But, when you're 13, you played from between 13 and 16, you played on 3 different AAA teams because you think that's how you're going to promote yourself and get more opportunity. Then you play on 2 different junior B teams. You've played in 5 different junior leagues, and you're running around because you think you need to be in place X, Y, Z to get noticed. It's like now you're a problem. Actually, You're the guy that's the problem.
Yeah.
So there's a line to draw there. So I don't know if you want to throw any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, that's so we have a lot of people think they got to move like the youth hockey players, meaning less than midget minor midget U16 whatever they call it. When you feel like you have to move to another center to get noticed, you're wrong. You're just wrong, and I just see a lot of that movement. It may help you a little bit, but not really.
It might get you an extra look. that's
whatever.
That's what I say about it. Like maybe.
But now you're going to be the one. If you're actually good, you're going to be the best player on a poor team. Moving to maybe you're not the best player on a poor team. You probably think you are, or Dad thinks you are. I can look at a handful of kids that have made this move, and they are not the best player on a poor team or not bad teams.
Yep.
But they feel if they play for Detroit Honey Baked or somewhere in Toronto or something like that, that they're going to get promoted. But the bottom line is now you're going to blend in or be bottom half, and that doesn't really help you.
Right.
So the thing is you just need to be. So the appropriate thing is, as you said, if let's take Charlie this year. If he was drafted or he didn't want to go to play in the OHL, where does he play this year? Would he play Junior B? Well, he could. Or another strategic move would be to play in the what's it called? OJHL, or maybe the BCHL, where I know the caliber's quite high. Right. That would be maybe an intelligent decision, but that matches the talent level as well.
Yeah. Well, we got the two kids in here that they were in that kind of situation where they got drafted. And they're going to have a decision to make coming up now because they're getting interest from both. They're not in the OHL yet, and they're getting interest from Division I schools. Yeah. So now, let's say they don't make, and they very well could make the OHL team next year. Let's say they don't. Now, what do they do?
But having said that, I was going to say this, is that after you make those moves and stuff, if you are good, you will still get found. So what we're talking about with the boys is they're playing in a Junior B loop where people are moving away from here because they think they're too good and they need to get promoted.
Yeah.
And they got schools all over them.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah.
Their schools are here. Hey, dude, they found them.
Yeah.
There's no secret. Like now I'm emotional.
Yeah.
Like I'm serious.
Yeah.
It pisses me off because people think that this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. And when people say they're going to find you, they will find you.
Yeah.
So why is it now all of a sudden this Junior B loop that no one apparently scouts and is not good enough has two players that they're good enough. Yeah. They found them. Yeah. Well, I guess it's a shit league. No, I guess it's not that shit, is it?
In the first 3 months, they got 5 Division I schools that wanted to go
Exactly, and there'll be a ton more.
Yeah. Right?
So you telling me that you needed to move away and go play somewhere better? No.
Right.
If you're good, you're good. If you're awesome, you're awesome. If you're getting points, you're getting points. If you're a power forward, you're a power forward at any level. You'll be great at it. People, listen, man. Again, goes back to this in the scouting. I use George Burnett for an example, right? I think I watch hockey and I train hockey and I've been around hockey, and I have. But I might watch Charlie play, and I might watch another game. Like I might watch one game a day of hockey. George watches his team, the team he's going to be playing. So he watches a game watching his team and the team he's going to be playing. He pre-scouts them. So we're at 4. He watches the review after. Then he scouts hockey all day. You're telling me he can't go to a Junior B game anywhere in the world and say that guy can play?
Right.
He doesn't go there and say, well, yeah, this league, the guy got 8 goals today in this league, but it's not that good. Well, he'll know what type of goals they were, what type of player he was, and he'll know exactly. Yeah. If that guy can step in. It doesn't have to be the best league in the world. So anyways, I'm glad this came up actually, because there's so many people that think the grass is greener somewhere else. It's better if I go to Detroit. It's better if I move to Toronto. My 14-year-old kid moved to Toronto, so he gets noticed. He'll get noticed playing for Chatham Cyclones.
Yep.
The Puce freaking River Rats, whatever. I don't know. It's not even a name.
My favorite non-real example.
Well, it doesn't matter. If you're good, you're good. They're going to find you, totally, man. They're going to find you.
I know. Well, and the same thing happened to me when I was playing junior. The league was a little bit better than it is now. Yeah, I think.
No, it is.
But
and I'll qualify that. When you played junior B here in the Southwestern Ontario loop, there might have been the odd guy that left to go to BC or whatever. Now it's like anybody that thinks that they need help, they think that they need to get out of here and go. So I would say we probably have 10 guys from just this area alone that are gone. No more than 10.
Yeah.
So that's 10 good quality hockey players that can make that league better.
Yeah, for sure. And we didn't really have as much of that. Like I said, because I had the chance to go to BC and I didn't know at the time. Like I didn't know that would have been a good move to make. I just didn't know. Now it's like a lot of people are going, but that's where people found me. Like I had the Division I schools all from playing junior B here. Yeah. That was where they found me. and you're going to be found. And then after that, if they say, okay, go play here or there, then you can make a choice about that after. But you don't have, it always comes down to the motivation for me. Like, why are you making the move you're making? And if you're, like you're saying, if you're good, you're good. That's a great point. But there's a difference between, having an intentional plan of, okay, in 5 years, I want to be here. What are my steps to get there? And following that versus I'm just desperately trying to do anything I can to get an opportunity anywhere because I feel like I need help. Like those are different motivations for what you're doing, So
we got the couple kids that moved away that didn't get drafted, and they thought, well, it's obviously because it's everybody else's fault, so I need to go somewhere else. And then guess how that's working out.
Yeah.
This is what it is. So anyways,
so I think, I think just wrapping up what I want for that second question, because we just talked about it for an hour. I think the takeaway, like you said, is go, find advice on like where you can improve, find the gaps in your own game, worry about yourself. Don't make like unhealthy comparisons in ways that aren't useful. And you have to be honest. You have to be honest about how you're playing. That's the only way that you're gonna end up getting better and improving the things you want to improve. It's not good enough to sit there and say, well, I'm the same as them. Like, why am I not getting what they're getting and whatever? Like, there's something there that's missing, obviously.
Yeah, that's why you might want to find someone that's not going to blow smoke up your ass and tell you this is what you need to get better at.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we'll wrap her there, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.